Everybody. My name is Omar Duque. I'm the president of HITEC. Welcome to this week's session of HITEC Live with Fernando Rosario, our partner in administrating and delivering our emerging executive program. It's always great to have Fernando with us. Every time that I sit in on something with him, I know that I learn something new. So I hope that you are as excited as I am for today's presentation. I did want to take a quick minute, and I did this on our Wednesday wellness session, just to once again acknowledge the unique period of time that we are all living. Early last week, HITEC released a statement, a joint statement in partnership with ITSMF, around everything that's happening in our country, in our world, around racial injustice, systemic racial injustice that has been happening for decades, if not for centuries, and actually 4 centuries. And we are at a unique inflection point in our country's history where I think that we have an opportunity to really affect some change and hopefully affect some long-term change that creates true reform. And that creates the opportunity for justice and equality moving forward for our generation and for the generations that come after us, for all of our children. We released a statement, but we recognize that that is just one very, very small step in what needs to happen. And we as an organization are committed to continuing to create spaces where we can have these conversations, where we can have these dialogues, both through the HITEC Live series, and we're actively looking to create opportunities to have these dialogues through HITEC Live, but also, and probably more specifically at our upcoming virtual summit in August. And also recognizing that it's not just about the dialogue that we have, but also about how we as a community of Latino leaders, whether it's through our companies, in our homes, and with our families, and in our community, have an opportunity to address what is a very real, and I think we can all recognize this, real racism and real colorism within our own communities and within our own families sometimes, mine included, and how we address those issues, how we bring them up, how we make them less taboo, so that we can affect some real change moving forward. And it's something that I know that I'm committed to and we're committed to as an organization. And I hope that we all as leaders from within the HITEC community can do something. I will tell you that for as devastated as these last couple of weeks have been, for as difficult as they've been, every single conversation that I've had with members of the HITEC community, of the HITEC family, leaders from within our organization, when they tell me what they're doing in their work, in their family, in their community, it really brings me renewed energy and renewed optimism about what is possible and the role that we all have to play in building the future that we want. And so I say that right now, very briefly, very perfunctorily, because this is a long-term thing and we're committed to keeping this top of mind, and we're committed to making sure that we continue to have these conversations and make the space for these conversations and highlight leaders that are doing meaningful work in this space today and in the months and years to come. So just wanted to say that because I think that the time merits the recognition and the acknowledgement, and it merits the time and the space for meaningful conversation and dialogue, and we're going to be doing that moving forward. Last thing, and Fernando was part of this conversation, earlier this week, we had a conversation, what I thought was a really dynamic conversation with leaders of 4 other Hispanic professional, national Hispanic professional organizations. And we were sort of talking about what were some of the things that we can do. And I think I was really encouraged by the fact that, yes, people are looking for action today, but we are looking to create something that will create meaningful impact moving forward, not just a response, not just an action today, but something that over the course of time can have a real meaningful effect. And so I'm looking forward to that collaboration with these other organizations. So I've already spoken more than I wanted to. I don't want to take any more time away from the main topic today. And so without further ado, I want to turn it over to Fernando Rosario, who should not be a foreign name or face or entity to anybody on this webinar. He's part of the HITEC family. He runs our emerging executive program. He's been a longtime HITEC member, probably since the organization was founded. He's somebody who I admire, who I look up to, who I enjoy collaborating with day in and day out, Fernando Rosario. So I'll turn it over to you, Fernando. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Omar. I really appreciate the introduction, and absolutely. So I've been part of HITEC from the days of inception, and I'm really proud of the organization and how far we've gotten. Thank you for the acknowledgement of the current situation and the call to action. Glad to hear and to actually see and witness the steps that the organization is taking. So it makes me even prouder to be part of this familia. So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here today with us. If you've seen me before, or we've met before, you know that I'm very passionate about the topic we're going to talk about today, and hopefully we'll put that spin on how we tie this back to your workplace, your corporate day life, or your entrepreneurship days. So what I am going to ask is that you interact with me. You can unmute your microphone and ask a question. You can type them into the chat, and Viv, I'm going to ask if you can help me with anything that comes in through the chat. But all in all, want to make this interactive. This is not for me. This is so we can collaborate and learn with each other. Can you give me a 2 thumbs up if that was okay on the chat, please? Or there we go. Or the people that I can see. This is great. If you if you see me looking somewhere else, it's because I have 3 monitors going on. So I have your faces over here, and then I have the presentation over here, and my notes over here. So bear with me. Good. So we'll get started real quick, and you probably heard me say this before a million times, but I'm going to say it one more time and stress it over and over. People buy you. Again, people buy you. It's not that you're being judged by your performance only. It's not that they look at what you've accomplished so far, but people really want to know who you are and why are they associated with you. So that is the premise for an entire conversation, and I hope that you do some self-reflection and you are self-aware of how you're coming across to others, because it's going to be a very important part in the rest of the conversation. Having said that, and I know this goes through a lot of people's mind, so I'm gonna come out and say, right, you need to understand and answer for yourself, because nobody else is going to answer it for you. Do you want to be right, or do you want to win in the conversation? Again, do you want to be right? And all of us have been there at some point in time, right? We want to get our points across. We want to share our opinion. We just want to convince you that what I'm saying is correct. But you got to stop for a second and think, is this getting you to winning that battle, or is it just demonstrating for your ego that you were right in your statements? So I think this is very, very important for us to continue the dialogue. Having said that, I would ask you, you can do it in a piece of paper or jot it down, or just at least think about it. Before we can work smart, we need to have a plan clearly defined, period. I like to work with my clients when I do executive coaching with a very simple piece of paper to understand where we are. And I encourage all of you to either take notes or do this exercise for 30 seconds. Number one, and I'm looking at that diagram that you have up on the screen, is what is the goal that you have in mind? And that goal has to be crystal clear. Is it that you're looking for a promotion? Is it that you're looking for a different project that you want to manage? Is it that you want to make more money? Are you looking for a lateral move? Are you looking to look for a different job? Yes, I'm going to have to go ahead and say it. But clearly define what is your goal. What do you have in mind? And yes, I can go into all those different acronyms like SMART and others, or the STAR method that you can come up with your goal. But let's keep it very simple. What's on your head? You have that in mind already? 2 thumbs up, some people?
Hey,
yes.
Fed,
yes.
Are you sharing a screen?
Oh, you're not seeing my screen?
No, I was going to ask that question.
Oh, that explains a whole lot, Viv. And you let me go on unannounced. What's going on here? Here we go.
Better late than never.
Better late than never. Thank you. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it now.
Excellent. I apologize about that. Thank you for letting me know. So this diagram, again, just real quick to explain it, this is what I usually do with my clients when we're doing executive coaching, right? So I want to make sure that you understand what your goal is. Can you now see the screen? Okay. Yep. So think for a second, what is the goal that you have in mind? Go ahead and type it in your notebook or your journals or whatever, but I really want you to take action today and not just walk away with what it is that you're trying to get out of it. So go ahead and take 10 seconds and write down what your goal is. Some of you may be thinking, well, Fernando, I have many. Okay, let's practice this exercise with one goal that you may have. Later on, you can extrapolate and do it multiple times, but let's pick one. Give me a thumbs up when you have it or you know, ready to go. Yep, I can see some. Hey, Nalby, great to see you. Great to see you. Okay, why is this important? Because we now have to do some self-reflection, right? We have to be self-aware. We really have to understand where we stand. And I'm going to ask you, not that you do, but don't lie to yourselves, right? So for that goal, I just want you to write down what obstacles, what impediments are you facing for that particular goal. Just go ahead and jot down maybe 3 and be very honest. It could be, I don't feel secure in pursuing that goal. It could be, I don't think that I'm worth doing that goal. It could be, I mean, be as blunt as you can because it's going to come back and help you. Now, all that I'm going to ask when you write obstacles, don't let them be disguised by it's not something that you can do. Just make sure that the obstacle that you're facing is not an excuse, right, for not pursuing your goal. Is that clear? We're good? Excellent, excellent. Now, once you have some of those obstacles, and we can come back and revisit, go ahead and take 30 seconds to write down what are some of the strengths, your skill set, your resources, your assets, the ones that are very directly tied to the goal that you're trying to achieve. Let's be very, very binary. Yes or no. Just write it down. I am a great communicator. I know how to solve problems. I know exactly how to manipulate somebody else. I don't care, right? I know that sounds negative, but you got to be blunt with yourself. I can persuade others if you like that word better. Go ahead and take just 30 seconds. Hopefully by now, you're seeing some patterns and you're seeing, you know, some valuable information as you try to achieve that goal. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready to look at that. Little did you know I was going to make you work today, right? You thought it was just going to be listening. Are we good? Thumbs up? Yep. Okay. So next step is, what are 3 to 5 actions or efforts that you can execute that are tangible efforts towards that goal? Now, it could be in different manners. It could be a tangible effort to address one of the obstacles that you've listed out. It could be a tangible effort on how you're going to leverage one of your strengths, one of your skill sets towards the goal. But make sure it is towards the goal, period. Not around it, but towards the goal. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for that as well. All right. And now, last but not least, look at that bottom part of the diagram, the timeline. I don't want you to do a project management effort at this point in time, but I would love for you to identify 3 to 5 key milestones that you're trying to get to. It could be by quarters. It could be every 6 months, right? But just give me something in terms of the timeline, the milestones. And V, for some reason, I lost my chat, so I'm not going to be able to see anything in the chat. But so be it.
I got you. No worries.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Here we go.
You can probably find it at the top part, though.
Nope, I just found it. You would think I'm a technology guy, so I just found it. It was hidden. Okay, so I think I've given you enough time at least to understand the concept behind the exercise. So wondering if you can type here on the chat box if you notice something interesting about yourself. I'm not asking you to share your goals or your obstacles unless you feel like it, but did you find anything interesting about this exercise? Just help me out, or you can unmute your microphone, but I want to make sure this is for you. Nothing good? Nothing good came out of it?
I think, hi, this is Jose. I think you were putting pressure on us to write it down, and it came natural because probably we haven't spent the time to put it in a formal way, but we know somehow where do we want to go. And
yes.
How do we want to go?
Yes, Jose. And this is particularly interesting because sometimes we spend more time planning a vacation that it's a 1 week long vacation than we do in our work scenarios, right? We spend more time in the itinerary, you know, the flight schedule, the hotel, what you're going to go see, what you want to accomplish. I know someone who's been planning the pictures they're going to take on their recent trip to Europe, the one that they have planned in the future. And they literally have an entire itinerary by day. And these are the pictures and the places that I need to come back with. But rarely do we spend a lot of time, to your point, Jose, putting pressure on writing our own goals that we can actually watch them. Any other interesting pieces that maybe somebody noticed?
I noticed that because of the pressure and the time allotted, it forced me to be very succinct, very concise with not just my goal, but with the obstacles, strengths, and all the other components of it. So everything that I put was not necessarily this elaborated. It was a very succinct one-word type of answer, which made it very poignant.
Perfect, perfect. So I am going to ask that you don't let this exercise just die, you know, at the end of this conversation. I encourage you to revisit that piece of paper and really hone down in the goal that you have set for yourself. Make it visual, you know, make sure that it's very tangible, that you can measure it, that you can know when you achieve that goal. And then go again back to the obstacles and write down every single obstacle that you feel that you're going to face. Again, these obstacles could be inner obstacles, right? It could be that voice in your head telling you, no, I can't do this. Or it could be external obstacles that we're going to go and tackle. And we'll talk about this throughout the presentation, but keep those in mind. Similarly, in the efforts column, make sure that you type any effort that you have to do to accomplish that goal, whether it's internal, which is what we call inner work, or external. You know, who do you have to talk to? Maybe you've been putting off a conversation with a mentor for the last 8 months. I encourage you to pick up the phone and make that phone call right after the meeting. Maybe you've been pushing off a tough conversation with somebody else. Go ahead and do so. You don't have to necessarily do it right now, but you may want to throw that seed, hey, I need to have a conversation with you. How about we plan it for next week, right? As long as the cat's out of the bag, you've started the momentum. Any questions, comments, concerns, and as I usually say, any jokes as well? All right. Please keep them coming in the chat. So we're going to spend a little bit of time, and I did this with the EEP class for HITEC, but we're going to cover a couple of the slides. Is number one, from an executive presence perspective, you need to understand that people are judging you, right, based on a couple of things. Number one is what they see. Yes, there is something to be said about your appearance, your image, your style, your personal brand. And I'm going to emphasize on this one, how you communicate, keyword, how you communicate. Pay attention that I'm not mentioning the actual content and what was said, but how you communicate it. So first of all, what other people see, very important. Number two, what you know. As soon as you open your mouth, as soon as you put pen to paper, people are going to be judging you based on your business acumen, your expert knowledge, the substance of the conversation, and yes, at this point in time, on what it is that you communicated. See the difference between the how and the what. It is absolutely another component you're going to be judged on. And last but not least, how you behave, your attitude, your beliefs and values, your confidence, your demeanor, how you come across to others. And I usually use the example. You are all familiar with that person that is very negative. It's never going to work out. We've tried everything before. I don't understand how this is again coming into the conversation. Give me a thumbs up or type yes in the chat box if you've experienced that person. I have a different one too. The one that says, I don't want to be the devil's advocate. Have you heard that person before? Then shut up. You don't want to be the devil's advocate. We don't want you to be the devil's advocate. Just give me a solution so we can move on. So understand that how you behave, your demeanor, your attitude is very important on how others perceive you. Okay? With that in mind, today we're going to cover 4 main areas. Number 1, strategic relationships. Who's surrounding you? Like who's your, call it what you will, the Knights of the Shining Table or whatever that's called, or your passe, or your group, or your pips. But you have to understand that whoever surrounds you speaks volumes on your behalf. Not only that, they can actually advise in a good way or in a negative way based on who you're asking for advice. Number 2, your communications, your style, your ability to tell your story with any audience. Raise your hand or type it into the chat box. How many of you know that person that cannot tell a joke if their life depended on it? They just cannot deliver. They cannot. Maybe it's you. I'm not calling it out. I'm just saying maybe. What happens? Usually those individuals insist on telling a joke. And it's only the relationship, the people around saying, don't do it again. Let's not go down that path. So we're going to talk a bit about the communication styles and how you can tell your story. Number 3, your personal brand, how you're perceived by other people, because it's very important. This is going to speak volumes when you're not in the room. What are they saying about you? And I am going to do a preemptive attack real quick, because I know eventually the question is, Fernando, how do I get feedback? Guess what? Feedback is all around you. They've been giving you feedback all day long, all week long, all month long, right? You're just not paying attention. You have to pay attention to the words they use with you. You need to pay attention to the compliments they give you. Of course, your performance reviews. Of course, a candid conversation. But the example I usually give is, imagine I walk up to you and I said, well, you're such a troublemaker, and I laugh. I laugh because I want to soften the blow or the message I'm giving you. But the fact of the matter is, I'm calling you a troublemaker, period. And you should take that and think, well, how many times has Fernando called me a troublemaker? Maybe there's some truth to that, right? Or maybe here you come in, you're walking in late as usual. No. They're just telling you that you're not on time. Pay attention, because the feedback is all around. Okay? Be self-aware. Any questions, comments, concerns at this point in time? Don't let me do all the talking.
I have a comment, Fernando.
Yes, Viv.
I'm communicating on behalf of our friend Angela Cruz, and I think it's timely because you talk about your personal brand. And so she had to jump off, but she wanted to share that she appreciates you coming to this session all decked out and like ready to go, because it shows that you have respect for the audience. So I think that goes along with, you know, having a personal brand and how you want to present yourself to the crowd.
Thank you, Valentine. Thank you for sharing that. I will say though, it's interesting because I've also been told, Fernando, I always see you with a jacket on. Maybe it's time for you not to have a jacket on. And so the personal brand is, it maybe has to adjust a bit in the coming days. But thank you for passing that along, Viv. And last but not least, actually, and truth be told, before we start the conversation, I was on the line with Viviana and with Christine, and I did not have my jacket on. I said, should I put a jacket on? And they said, it's your brand, do what you want. So thank you, Viv, for not being that clear on the message. I got it. All right, and last but not least, coaching and mentoring, because if you want to work smart, you need to understand that it's not just by putting your head down and getting things accomplished. As you can see in these 4 pillars, who's surrounding you, how you communicate, what your brand speaks, and who's coaching and mentoring you are going to play a critical role in your success. You may be working harder when in fact you got to let your peeps, your team work for you. You may be working harder. Maybe you just need to let your communication style do the magic. Maybe you're working way hard, and what you need to do is let your brand speak for itself. And maybe you're working very hard when in fact what you need to do is let your coaches and your mentors give you a little bit of encouragement on how to get to the next level. Yes?
Fernando, there's like, I really like the 4 guiding principles you have here. Quick question for you. Are there any principles outside of these 4 that didn't make the cut? Okay. Because these are 4 very good verticals with which that really, you know, take a good hard look at all of us and allow us to evolve. But is there any other one guiding principle that, you know, didn't make the cut, but man, it's just a hair breadth difference of importance that you kind of want us to, as a supplement to these 4 guiding principles, keep in the back of our mind?
Delia, no, this is great. I'm going to stop sharing for one quick second, and maybe we do this in the future, but I'll share with you something. So I've done in the past, I've run a program that I call Charting Your Career, and if you can see those right there. So I like to sail, and what I've done is the comparison of waypoints. And what I did is I came up with 9 waypoints that I believe are important to everyone's life. And I'm going to read them to you real quick. So number 1 is the leadership component of your life, your authentic self, your authentic leadership, the knowledge that you bring to the table, because you can't make that up. And I rarely talk about that in any of my seminars because I can't tell you what you're an expert on, but make sure that it's on point. Make sure that you are an authority on that area. Number 3 is leading teams right here. So you got to have the ability to lead teams. And I was just in a conversation the other day where somebody said, anybody can be a leader if you have all the resources. If you have all the money in the world and all the people and all the time in the world, anybody can be a leader. But it takes a strong leader to lead teams down that path, right? Number 4 is managing self, right? Are you centered? Do you really understand who you are, your value system, your beliefs, how you think? What kind of programs are you running in your head? Are you running the negative thoughts all the time? Are you running the optimistic, right? And there's a balance that you need to strike. Your executive presence, which we're talking about today a bit. I have your personal brand, coaching and mentoring, relationships and communication. So I missed out 5, Dalia. Does that help?
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. Just wanted to get a couple of what those supplemental verticals are. So thank you.
We got plenty of those, so keep coming the questions. Any other questions or comments? Is this helping? Are we going in the right direction here with the group? Excellent. And I lost my chat one more time.
Fernando.
Yes.
I have a question about the personal brand. I know many people make personal brand tied to your personality. And there's discussion about whether you should portray yourself differently at work than you should portray yourself at home. I will argue that you should be the same person, regardless whether you're at home or at work. It's just that you should definitely work on how you are and how to portray that. To use your example is, if you're a really bad joke teller, your wife and your kids might always forgive you with that, for that, but and you can go ahead and tell bad jokes. But at one point, you cannot do that at work. Do you think the concept of your personality should not change at home? Can be, or should not change wherever you are? You should not pretend to be somebody different. It's not consistent with your personal branding at work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You actually read my mind with the next slide. So it's as if you put it together for me. So on the next slide, and I've said this a couple of times, I'm going to say it one more time. I cannot remember the author that came up with this, so I'm not going to take credit. This is not mine, but it's an author, and I would gladly give credit. I just don't remember the name, so I apologize. But to your question, he says, at any point in time, you are 3 individuals. Number 1 is who you think you are. Right? Who you truly believe this is the person that you are in your head. Number 2, it's who other people think you are. And again, there's a big difference between who you think you are and who others think you are. I may think that I'm humble. Somebody else may think you're arrogant. I may think that I'm patient. Somebody else may think you're not patient at all, Fernando, right? I may think that I'm not stubborn. Somebody else may say you are stubborn, just like you're, anyway, like a bull. And third is who you actually are. Now, to your question, which I think is very important, the farther apart those three bubbles are, the more problematic it is for you to have an actual brand. Because as you can tell, we're judging you depending on the scenario, the situation, whether it's at work or it's outside of work. So make sure that you take note, do an analysis, be self-aware if these three bubbles are actually in the center or if they're not. Now, I will address something that you mentioned about the personality, right? There's a bit of a difference, right? When you say I'm a bad joker, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the brand or being a bad joker. The question I would have for you is, how do you leverage that particular skill set? And yes, I'm going to call it a skill set, right? Being a bad joker into converting it to your brand. You could be a bad joker, but still be the life of the party, right? Because you acknowledge I'm a bad joker and I'm going to make you laugh by being a bad joker, right? It's all about how you put context around the personality that you have and the brand that you want to submit. I think the problem is when you let me, an outsider, define your personality and your brand. Does that make sense? Yep.
Absolutely.
If you let me define the brand for you, you're now fighting an uphill battle you had no idea you had to fight, right? Because I probably talk about you in other circles in that fashion. And now you don't know that you have to battle that. I can say, hey, he's just a joker. Or I don't really know that he knows what he's doing, right? And it could be a simple joke, but now you start developing a brand. And now instead of just making your brand stronger, you're starting from a negative point that you have to catch up to be neutral to make it up, to create a brand. Does that make sense? Are we good? Yeah. And with that, make sure that you understand that perception is reality. End of story. If you don't want that perception to become a reality, then make sure that you stop it right away. For example, I do another seminar, which I call it, the Hispanic DNA, right? The genes that make up all of us, right? And one of them, because we don't like to talk about it, but it comes up is, are they punctual? Are they on time? Well, here's Fernando. He's from Puerto Rico. He's going to be late. He's going to be late, right? That's not true on my part, but I can tell you that if I'm late one time, it just increases the stereotype on my brand just because of that one time and something that I have to fight outside of my immediate circle. So make sure that you understand how perception is impacting you, your work, and your surroundings. With that, I'm going to ask you again, not that you have to take a lot of time, but I like to walk through this exercise when I'm having those seminars. If you see in front of you, there's a slide that it's a personal brand assessment. And I encourage all of you to take notes real quick. Again, we don't have to make this an exhaustive exercise, but number one, what are your go-to set of skills? Period. Whatever you're good at, what are your go-to set of skills that you pull from at any given day? Is it the solving complex problems? Is it that you have an act for simplifying complex statements? And you know that person. They walk into a meeting, they hear 45 minutes of conversation, and they go, "This is the line that describes the whole thing." Right? Is that your skill set? So I'm asking you to jot down, what are your go-to set of skills? Number two, and I'm gonna go vertical. What makes you likable? And I know some of you are cringing just on the idea that I'm saying likable. How do you measure that, Fernando? How do I know if I'm likable? You know if you're likable. Are you the life of the party? Do they invite you to come in? Do they want to hear you speak? Do they want you to be the center of attention? Can you make connections easily? I can go on and on and on and on and on with what makes you likable. So jot down, what are some of the things that make you likable? Is it that you make other people feel welcome? Is it that you like to make the introductions to make sure that nobody's left out? Is it that you like to listen to every point of view before making a judgment call? Right? What makes you likable? This is very important. I don't think I have it in today's slides, but, and the EEP fellows heard me say this the other day. At any point in time, there are 3 levels of resistance that you're going to get from somebody else. Resistance level number 1 is I don't get it. I heard what you said, I just don't get it. And because I don't get it, I push back, I resist. But if you get past that point, you get resistance level number 2, which is I don't like it. I get what you said, I just don't like it. And because I don't like it, I push back. And I usually provide the difference between those two. If I walked into your office and I said, you're fired, do you get it? Oh, you get it. You just don't like what I just said. And then if you get past those 2 points, the third one is I don't like you. I know some of you are thinking impossible. Same thing I said many years ago, impossible that you don't like me. I'm not the problem. No, no, no. Some people don't like you, period, end of story. You just need to be aware on how you're going to handle that. So that second box, what makes me likable, make sure that you're crystal clear. Number 3, what feedback do I receive regularly? What feedback do I receive regularly? Remember what I told you. It could be a body language feedback that you're receiving. It could be a nonverbal, verbal. It could be written. Number 4, what makes you different and unique? And oh my Lord, sorry that I'm gonna go down this rabbit hole. Don't say I'm a hard worker. Don't say I like to solve problems. Why? I'm a team player, because all of you are going to say exactly the same. And I am encouraging you, right? I am pushing you. I'm challenging you to think what really makes you unique. Why would they call upon you and nobody else? What makes you stand out? Are we good? Next side of the columns. What makes me successful? There's a difference in all the skills that you have and your go-to set of skills versus what makes you successful. For example, I know someone that's very strategic and they know when it's the time to speak and when's the time to just shut up. I believe that is one of his biggest traits. He just knows when to shut up, right? It's not an actual skill. Well, I could say it's a skill set, but what makes you successful, right? Number 2, what are you known for? Yes, as hard as it is, write down what are you known for. Number, what is it now? 7, when are you most comfortable? Some people may say, Fernando, I'm most comfortable speaking in front of a crowd. Some people may say, no, Fernando, you know what? I like to work on my own. Some individuals may say, I hate it when they put me on the spot in a particular meeting because I am the type of person that likes to think about my answers before. But if you're going to work smarter, you also need to understand that the people around you are paying attention. And sometimes your silence, as well-intended as it is, as much information that you're processing in your brain may come across as, why should I invite you to my next meeting if you're always silent? So I'm just not going to invite you. So you also need to play a bit of strategy. Going back to that, what makes me successful? You got to be strategic about how you approach your day-to-day work. I'll give you an example I used many, many years ago. Let's say that you're solving a major problem, right? And you're typing away. You could solve it while nobody's around. If it was me, I would wait until Omar is right next to my office, and then I'll go, oh, look at this. I fixed it. And then he's going to say, oh, did you get it? Oh, I had no idea you were standing there when you saw my successful execution of this problem. You see, there's got to be a bit of strategic angle on this whole situation. I'm seeing some faces shaking yes and no's. Are we good? Are we comfortable with this? Yeah? Questions, comments, concerns, jokes. All right. And last but not least, what are you praised for frequently? Oh, and I'm missing one. Oh, yes, this is a good one. What do others come to you for regularly? Do they ask you to present the project regularly? Do they ask you to monitor the budget regularly? Do they ask you to deliver the tough messages? Do they ask you to have the tough conversation with that team member that has gone rogue? Right? So what do they come for you frequently? That should give you a sense of what your brand is. Hopefully, and I want to see something on the chat, right? Hopefully this is triggering some thoughts, and hopefully this is starting to get you to think your brand and what you need to work on. Yes? No? Getting some chats over here. All right. I get when they come to me for, yeah. Now they come to me for fixing stuff. You want to remember you're not stuck on that scenario for a long time because you become the firefighter. Excellent. So I get a question. So is it better to start from the bottom up then? I think, Tamara, it's up to you as long as you cover all of these areas, if you ask my opinion, right? I don't think this is an exercise that you do over a period of time. I think you need to take an afternoon, a weekend, and just go through it. You can always massage and manipulate the data at some point in time, but go ahead and do a brain dump into what your personal brand is right away. And usually it's just like an exam, right? When you take an exam, usually what comes to mind is the right answer. And what do? We convince ourselves to change it. And we selected A, now we're at D, we're at C, when it was A all along, but we started overthinking the whole scenario. So don't overthink this. Just go ahead and do it. Okay. One of my favorite topics, communications. It's not what you say, it's what I hear. I'm going to say that one more time. It's not what you said, it's what the other person heard in the conversation, which is magical when you see these conversations from a third-party perspective, right? You think you're exposing the problem. The other person is thinking how problematic you are by not coming in with solutions. Now, you have a valid point. You're just trying to articulate what's wrong with the project or the scenario or the company. What the other person may be hearing is blah, blah, blah. Here we go. The squeaky wheel one more time. You need to understand what they're understanding from your conversation. And with that map, which I love, right? Everyone has their own map of the world, and you need to understand your audience. For example, if I use words like, this is chaos, this is a disaster, don't you dare reply back with that problem that you're referring to. No, Fernando, you want to talk in magnitudes, right? Of chaos, disaster, because in my head, that's what I just articulated for you. If you minimize or undermine what I just told you, we're already disconnecting in our communications. So it's those subtle messages that you have to understand. For example, the word love may have a different meaning to you than it is for me. It is to my benefit that I understand what you mean by that word so I can select, pick, and choose the right words when I have a conversation with you. We good? I'm just gonna keep going.
Fernando, actually,
I think, sorry, just wanted to say this, it's a very interesting concept that you bring forward. I work in sales, and my bread and butter of every day is having conversations with people who is very different than me and come from all realms of life and actually very different industries too. So they're very different. And one of the things that are very important is in the first few seconds, minutes, trying to assess who that person is and trying to modulate my word choice, my conversation to that person's background. That's why for me it's so much better when I'm having a conversation on site than over the phone, because, you know, I can assess the environment and then the person's office and the decor, and, you know, that person went to the military, or that person, you know, likes the beach, or the pictures that they have on the, you know, on the office and what have you, you know. So there is all that balance between, you know, connecting the dots to what you said before about just I am myself, you know, and I have my own personality, and yet I have to make adjustments to be understood by my audience. And how do I, you know, it's a fine balance of being myself without incurring to hubris, and also modulating to the other person without being fake. And, you know, it's that fine line to walk every time I communicate.
It is a fine balance.
I don't know.
I love that statement, and something that you said trigger an example, right? So I remember having a sales conversation with someone who was very military, right? He was a military style, somebody with that background. We were just not connecting. I kid you not, true story. It wasn't until minute about 45, minute 46, when I used the term, well, that's just the tip of the spear. When he literally relaxed and he goes like, oh, here you go, using all military terms and whatnot. From that point forward, we were able to actually communicate, because I was having a conversation at a different level than he was, right? I'm not saying higher or lower. We were just not using the same terms. As soon as I picked up on that little nugget of information, the conversation started to flow a lot better, right? I think there was another comment. I heard somebody else.
Actually, it was me.
Jason.
So I had read a book a while ago, just one apparently, but I had read a particular book that said, if you notice in conversations particular terms that people are using and can reiterate them to them, it creates a very quick bond through that. Is this roughly what you're saying and what you're embodying in that?
Absolutely. Now, what I want to make sure that you don't walk away with, there is no silver bullet, right? This is about being very aware of your audience. And with that, I'm going to give you a quick example. And for the EEP fellows, I believe they've seen it, but I always like to end up with the ladder of inference. For example, for you in the seminar, if you saw someone with their arms crossed, go ahead and put it in the chat. What does that mean? Like, let's say you saw someone with their arms crossed, like Omar is doing right now. What would you say? Type it in the chat. Closed off, yep. Cold, standoffish. What else do we have? Come on. You've all seen that person. They're thinking defensive. They're mad. Oh, my Lord. I have nowhere to put my elbows. That's fantastic. I'm paying close attention. Bored. Well, listen, I'm going to tell you real quick. You've all experienced what we call the ladder of inference. It means absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And this is how the ladder of inference works. And Jason, this is going to go back to what your question is. Number one, the ladder of inference indicates that you observe data. You just saw a person. Let's say I'm saying Omar. I just saw Omar. And then the next step is that I filter the data. What do? I only selected the arms crossed. I didn't want to watch his face smiling or his feet maybe were tapping or dancing. I just filtered the data. And then three, I add meaning to it. Person is cold, standoffish, defensive, they're not interested. After I add meaning, I make an assumption. Now, this is downhill from here, right? After I make an assumption, I draw a conclusion, then I adopt a belief, which is when I see someone with their arms crossed, they better, they're defensive. And last but not least, I take action, which means I don't want to talk to Omar because he's standoffish. But here's the problem with that whole equation. You observe data. You filter the data, you added meaning to the data, you made the assumption, you drew the conclusion, you adopted a belief, and you took action. Keyword, you, which means the other person, in this case, Omar, had no idea all this was going through your head. So how is he going to battle that? There's no way. So now put this into perspective, right? When you have a conversation with somebody else, they also have their ladder of inference at play. Right? So now you don't even know what you're fighting. You don't even know what stage they are. So what is my suggestion? And Jason, I'm going to close it with this, right? My suggestion is that all of you remain as long as possible in the ladder of inference. Observe data. Then be very aware of how the conversation is unfolding for the rest of the conversation, to listen to the words, as we were saying, right? The terminology that's being used, the language that they're using. Are they visual or not? If I told you I don't see a problem with that, don't you dare tell me that doesn't sound right, Fernando. Sound, see, we're not connecting, period. You may think this is silly, but it's not up to you. It's up to your subconscious who's making the decision if they're going to disconnect or not, right? So that's what's happened at this point in time. Pay attention to the nonverbal cues. Again, I guarantee, hands down, that all of you have watched a conversation where one individual is rolling their eyes like they have no interest whatsoever in the conversation, and the other person continues to try to convince them or try to put their points across. Have you seen that? Have you raised your hands if you have, right? So it is easy to see from afar, but what if that person was you, that you're not reading the signs, you're not reading the rolling up the eyes? I usually get the question about, Fernando, what about on the phone? It is the same, except that you leverage different signals. For example, silence, the way they breathe, the pauses that they take, the tone, the pitch, the volume, the speed. And you're going to say, Fernando, that's a lot. Yes, because I never said that was easy. But what I am telling you, that if you really pay attention, you're going to pick up. For example, let's say that you make a statement, and at that point in time, she takes a deep breath on the other side. She goes, well, why do you keep going on with the conversation? Why not break the pattern and say, hey, now I heard something that maybe struck you as wrong. You want to talk about it? Open it up for them to have that conversation. So you see, you're self-aware and you're creating an environment where they can actually share the information with you. Okay? To me, this is fascinating. So I don't know about you, but this is fascinating. Real quick before we finish up with the communications, yes, a question, comment?
Yes, I do have a question, Fernando. Hi, this is Sergio, Michigan.
Hi, Sergio.
I see you. So something that I see that sometimes we pass is the other person's background, particularly if they are from another country or from another culture. So for example, in some countries, when they are very honest with you, they tend to talk very loud. Yeah. And you might take that as an aggression, right? So I've been in a couple of situations where the other person was not aware of the other person's background, or as one of my bosses keeps telling us, you need to put a lot of cream in your taco. So there was a disconnection with that background of many people's culture. They thought that she really meant to put a lot of sour cream on your taco. What she was telling us, you need to do more, you need to do that. So until she started explaining that, people were like, oh, wow, I understand what you meant. But I think that culture part is really also important when we are trying to do something on the ladder of inference.
It is, but let me add to that real quick, because I love that, right? Culture, education, your upbringing and all that actually plays into it. But I'm gonna go back to the second slide. Do you want to be right or do you want to win? What do I mean by that? Do you want to explain the reason for that person being loud or that person, coming across as conflicted or not? Or do you want to win? My suggestion to you would be, okay, be aware of the scenario, understand your audience, and now put a strategy in place to bring them back to a normal level where everybody understands each other. For example, there's nothing, go ahead and type it into the chat. There's nothing more annoying to a fast talker than what? Again, there's nothing more annoying to a fast talker than what? Exactly, a slow talker. The opposite is true. There's nothing more annoying to a slow talker than a fast talker. It doesn't matter what your culture is. It doesn't matter if it's loud or fast or whatever the case may be. You just need to understand, okay, if I understand the scenario, the context, this is what I'm going to do. And there are strategies for that. I am going to mirror. Sergio, I am going to say, if you're a loud talker, I am going to increase my decibels by a bit, just so I can match how loud you are. Once we build rapport, I am going to lower mine, and it's practically a guarantee the other person is going to follow. The same thing with a fast talker. Just go ahead and talk faster, right? The other person is going to acknowledge. You know why? Because we like people that act like us. So if they're going fast, go fast. Then slow down, don't slow down. So you can see that it works with volume, tone, pitch, pauses. It just needs to be done in a strategic manner. Also understand all of the cultural differences that you can come up with. There's a really good book called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. And it talks about differences in different areas, right? Whether it's Asia, Europe, or North America. And it gives you a very good perspective on how to deal with different scenarios. All that I want you to do, and this is to the group, it's never a binary issue. It's not a yes or a no. You need to understand your audience. And I think we have 5 minutes left. So I am going to show you real quick.
Fernando.
Yes.
I'm sorry, quick question to that. That's very fascinating last point. How do you deal with situations when you're having a conversation with someone who is very type A personality, someone who is very, tend to dominate the conversation and trying to suck the air out of a proper discussion? We all have faced those situations in ways it's hard to stand your ground without being confronted, and yet you just want to win. You don't want to, ultimately that's what you want to do, right? You don't want to be right, you want to win.
Correct.
How do you address that?
No, this is a wonderful question. Number one, we can't just look at it from a type A personality or not, right? It's depending on the situation and the scenario. What I suggest is, first of all, try to read what the objective is for that person. What is their incentive? Are they just really trying to show off that they know all of the answers and they just want you to submit to their prowess and how smart they are? You need to understand, is that worth the fight? Can you still get your objective met without hurting their ego, right? All that I'm saying, Jorge, is maybe you do need to throw them a Scooby snack, right? Is that how they want to come across? Let them. If it's not going to change the outcome, what is it to you? But also you have to be strategic. For example, I learned it from a good friend of mine. He says, listen, If you have that person that always likes to win, let's say that they like to destroy options. Every option that you put on the table, they like to destroy one. Then be strategic about it. Walk in with 4 options, 3 that you want to talk about, and 1 that is going to be trash. That is the Scooby snack. You throw that at them. Then they start destroying that one. See, what you've done is you broke the pattern. You take that need to destroy one of the options out of the equation. That leaves you with 3. Now we're going to have a real candid and open conversation. But pay attention that it was very strategic from the beginning, right? I came in understanding how the conversation was going to go. Number 2, don't just assess the situation at that point in time. They're type A personality and they just want to win. Okay, do a little bit of strategizing ahead of time. Ask yourself, what are the 5 questions that they're going to come at me with? What are the things I'm not going to have an answer to, right? And try to corner them that way. See, you're still letting them win, but you're getting yourself, you're right? You're throwing them a Scooby snack. Does that make sense? And I'm going fast because we only have 3 minutes left, but you get the point, I believe. Yes? Good.
Fernando, so I know we're going to end up in 3 minutes, but I'm going to advocate for part 2. I put it in the chat. I've gotten several votes already, and I want to win. So.
Excellent.
We're going to advocate for that because I think, especially in regards to strategic relationships, everything you just hit on right now, we can all emulate. And I'm the kind of person that you show me what it looks like, and I'll do it. All right. So I'm going to advocate again because I'm here to win because I learned my lesson today to ask for a part 2.
I love it. I am going, thank you so much, Zelia. I'm going to finish up with 3 quick slides and we'll finish on time, I promise. This first one that you see here, just put this in your head, right? Everything boils down to people and relationships, period. If you have a disagreement, feel free to contact me afterwards, but everything boils down to people and relationships. Number 2, the people you hang out with determine your future success or failure. You can mark my words. And people do business with people they know and like. Now, some of you are shaking their heads. You're like, I don't like it. The fact that you don't like it doesn't make it less truthful. So make sure that you understand that. Because of these 3 rules, I want you to take away, you can take a picture of this and you can do it later. Number 1, do an assessment of your tribe, of your pips. I know some of you are going to get very, very uncomfortable with this. Nonetheless, go ahead and do it. You'll see on the left-hand side what is the effort to maintain. On the bottom of the axis is the value they bring. You all have that person that is high maintenance, low value add. I wonder why you haven't voted them off the island. It says it by nature. They're low value added, high maintenance. Now you may say, I can't do it. That's my spouse. Well, that's a different story. Or my friend or my family. My point is, as long as you have a good picture of what your relationship map looks like, you can start making better decisions. And last but not least, from a work perspective, and I'll finish on this note, listen, talk to me a long time ago when I said, hey, I'm not getting promoted. What do I do to get promoted? And this individual said, Fernando, I want you to write down every person that you believe has something to do with your promotion. And I went down and I jotted down the list, and then he ripped it apart. He said, you have no idea. You do not have any understanding of your political landscape where you work. And then he had me do this exercise, strongly encourage it so you don't leave it to chance. Number 1, it could be for a promotion, to get that project that you're looking for, to get a lateral move, whatever it is. Write down the names of the individuals that you need on your corner. Don't stop the list, just brainstorm. Number 2, write down the reason you need them. Hint, I'm not talking about a title. I'm talking about the reason. I need John Smith because he leads the North America head count. That's on his pocket. And I need Maria because she's the market maker, not because of a title. And third, but not less important, write your relationship status. I'm using Harvey Balls. You can use 1 through 5. You can do whatever you want. But be honest to yourself. How well do you know that person? Once you have this map, then and only then can you put together an action plan on how you're going to get to them and create a better relationship with them, because you've already identified they are the people you need. So if I pull this full circle to that piece of paper at the beginning with what's your goal, this should be part of what you have. With that, I'm going to give you my information. If you need to get a hold of me, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I hope this was informational, and I'm here at your service. I think we're right on time, right, Viv?
You did awesome.
Thank you. Turn it back to you or Omar?
No, can you guys hear me? Okay, perfect. I'm not on mute. No, thank you so much. As Delia mentioned, I think was a loud and resonating voice for having you come back for a part 2. So we will work on that and let you guys know. So thank you so much for sharing this fantastic words of wisdom on this Friday. Next week, guys, we're gonna have Dr. Khan for Wellness Wednesday. I'm gonna share my screen real quick so you guys can, he talks about keeping a healthy heart and why it's important. I think in these times, we all want to stay healthy. So this is another fantastic expert that's going to come to us next week for Wellness Wednesday to talk about how keeping our heart healthy. So please join us. I think it's going to be really exciting. And we will see you all next week. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Viv.
This was
Thanks,
great.
Fernando.
Awesome.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye.
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 Good weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.